Today we're learning Shabbat Daf Ayin Bet. Today's shiur is dedicated for Refuah Shlema to Leah Naomi Bat Rachel by Deborah Dixon. Hope everything goes well in the surgery today. And we're pleased to be part of International Women's Talmud Day, which is taking place today with Talmud events promoting Talmud learning among women around the world. On another note, I want to mention that tomorrow I'm teaching for Beit Avichai. They have a series, an English series on Pirkei Avot, and I'm speaking about the importance of Talmud Torah. And it's at 5 o'clock in the afternoon Israel time. You can find the details on the Beit Avichai site, which is bac.org.il. There's a Zoom link there. And if you have any issues, let me know. I'll try to help you find it. Okay. We're starting from Ayin Aleph Amabet at the very bottom, Amar Ula. We ended yesterday with a machloket Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish about if someone sins, they do, they eat chaylev, let's say, then they eat chaylev again, then they find out that they ate the first piece of chaylev, and then they find out, remember, chaylev is this forbidden fat. There's different parts of the animal, some are forbidden, some are not. It all depends on, it connects, I mentioned this the other day, the parts that you're supposed to burn on the altar. I kind of mentioned it very quickly, so I'll bring it up a little bit now. The parts that are supposed to be burnt on the altar, if you bring a sacrificial animal, on a regular animal, those parts are forbidden to be eaten. If you eat those accidentally, you have to bring a korban chatat. It's usually the classic case that they bring up a korban chatat, although it's really anything that if you did it on purpose, you get karet, cut off, which again, we talked about, we're not exactly sure what the definition is, but some sort of early death. And therefore you bring a chatat if you do it unwittingly. So if you were to do one and then another, and then you found out about the first, and then after you find out about the second, do we say yidiot mechalkot, that the knowledge of the first one already separates the first one, and that means that you're going to have to bring a separate korban chatat on each one? That's Rabbi Yochanan. Why does Rabbi Yochanan say that? It seems that Rabbi Yochanan holds that the moment of yidi'ah, imagine when you find out you did something wrong, think about how you feel at that moment, right? You feel incredibly remorseful. You can't believe that you just did that. And that process that happens at the moment of yidi'ah is basically like atonement. So you basically somewhat, even though you still have to bring a sacrifice, you've partially atoned at that point, which means that when you have a yidi'ah for the next act, you can't combine them because it's as if your kapara was already done. It's as if you already sacrificed the sacrifice. And then at that point, it certainly can't cover your second act because even though you already performed the second act, you didn't actually know that the second act was forbidden. Let's say again, you didn't know whether it was chaylev or fat that you were eating, right? You didn't know if it was permitted fat or forbidden fat. So Rabbi Yochanan's approach is that the moment of yidi'ah is an important moment because it determines that you're now going to be obligated to sacrifice. We talked about that. Because it says in the verse, "Oh hoda alav chatato asher chata." When he knows about it, that's when he has to bring a korban chatat. And because that yidi'ah is so important, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that means yidi'ah is like kapara, it's like atonement. And therefore, if you have the yidi'ah, before you even know about the other sin that you did, even though they're all part of the same thing, it was all eating forbidden fats, one can't cover the other. And Rish Lakish says, no, until you actually bring the sacrifice, then you're not obligated, okay? I'm sorry, you haven't, until you bring the sacrifice, that's when it determines what this sacrifice is going to cover. If you still, let's say, again, let's go through the order. You made a mistake in one, you made a mistake in the other, you found out about the first, you found out about the second, and then you brought your sacrifice, according to Rish Lakish, that can cover everything because you really did the same thing in both instances. So what that you had a yidi'ah in the middle? That should have messed things up, right? And then there was a whole debate at the end of the daf about whether they're arguing about, if not yidi'ah, maybe hafrasha, maybe Rish Lakish would agree at hafrasha, maybe Rabbi Yochanan would agree with Rish Lakish a little bit. So anyway, that's the issue here. I'm just reading something in the chat for a quick minute. Atonement, were we able to bring a sacrifice for 10% repeatedly? Right, okay, so someone's asking here, if we're able to bring a sacrifice and atone for sins done repeatedly, right, what does that society look like, right? So that goes back to this whole problem of echtav ashuv, where the Nevi'im talk about it, that people keep bringing sacrifices and saying, oh, well, now I can sin because I can just keep bringing sacrifices. But that's not really what's going on here. Because here, this is somebody made a mistake. It was a mistake, right? It wasn't on purpose. Now, it wasn't exactly not on purpose, because otherwise we'd call that honest, but it was a mistake. Didn't know it was forbidden, didn't know that this was forbidden fat maybe. So that's a little bit different, although hold off on the question because we're going to get there in a minute, okay, or maybe 2 minutes. So Amar Ula. Now we're switching off of chatat, which is the way in English we call that a sin offering, which is the general sin offering we've been discussing all along. It's what you bring for melachot on Shabbat if you do it. It's what you bring for anything that, again, bizadon, b'mezid. If you did it on purpose, you get karet. The shogeg, you bring chatat. Now we're going to move on to asham. Asham is a guilt offering. Guilt offering is brought for a number of reasons. There's something called an asham taloi, which we'll get back to. That's not our issue today. That's when you aren't sure. Let's say you ate a piece of fat, and then you're not sure. Someone says, I think that's chaylev, but you're not sure it's chaylev, okay? You don't know whether you accidentally ate chaylev or not. If you want to get atonement until such time that you determine, you can't bring a chatat unless you know. That was the whole thing. You have to have yediyah. If you don't have yediyah, you can't bring it. But you want to atone because maybe you really did something wrong. And maybe you'll never find out whether it was actually chaylev or not. So you can bring what's called an asham taloi. It's a guilt offering, a hanging guilt offering. And it kind of gives you atonement until such time that you find out that you actually did something wrong. And if you then find out you really did it, then you actually have to bring a chatat. Your asham taloi doesn't cover you, but it covers you in the interim and in the event that you never actually find out. But then there's other kinds of ashams. You bring an asham for 5 reasons, okay? And these are called asham vadai to distinguish it from asham taloi. Asham taloi is a doubtful guilt offering. Maybe you need it, maybe you don't. The asham vadai is when you definitely are obligated in asham. And that is in 5 cases, okay? I'll start with the ones that we're not dealing with today. 2 are asham nazir and asham mitzorah. The nazir and the mitzorah, a leper, and also someone who became a nazir, who stopped drinking wine and stopped cutting hair. When they finish their nizirut, or the mitzorah finishes the process of purification, they have to bring a number of korbanot, and one of them is an asham. They each have to bring 3 korbanot. One is an asham. Okay, that's asad. You also bring it on mi'ilah. Mi'ilah is when you accidentally misuse consecrated property. Something was hekdesh, and you used it, you didn't know. You find out, you bring an asham mi'ilot. Another one is gezelot. You swore that you didn't steal something, or that someone says, I gave you something to watch and now you kept it as your own, and I swore that it was mine and that I wasn't told to watch it for you. Or you lent me money and I swore that there was no loan. And then I say, listen, I lied, it wasn't true. You have to bring an asham gezelot. Okay, those 4 we're not dealing with today. We're dealing with asham shifcha charufa. Okay, this is it's unclear from the Torah. It's a very strange scenario. It's unclear exactly what is a shifcha charufa. Okay, it's translated as a designated maidservant. What does it mean she's designated? A shifcha knaanit, a non-Jewish shifcha, is allowed to be designated to an eved ivri. If you're a slave, a Jewish slave in a Jew's house, you're allowed while you're there to sleep with a shifcha knaanit, if she's designated to you. So it seems that this is what we're talking about, although there's a debate. Many understand, and I think Halacha Lama said this is how we paskin, that the shifcha charufa that we're talking about is someone who's a half shifcha and half free woman. If this is a scenario where how could you be half-half? It's very common. The Gemara brings up this case about an eved very often, where you had the woman was owned by 2 different masters. One freed her and one didn't. So she's half-half, which actually makes her tricky because she's really not allowed to be with an eved ivri and she can't be with a Jew. Once she's freed, she actually becomes a Jew. Because if you remember, all these avadim Canaanim were half Jews. When they get freed, which you're actually not allowed to free them, but if you do, they basically become Jewish. So now, let's say, okay, so this is a very strange situation in the Torah because also you have to bring an asham, and the way they understand the psukim, it's a little bit where they learn it from, there's a debate about, but I'm not going to get into all the details. But it seems that if you sleep with a shifcha charufa, it's clear that, okay, so a man comes along, he sleeps with someone who is designated to some other Jewish person who was a slave. So she's designated to someone, but ein kiddushin tofsim. That means there's no marriage, legal marriage, between the eved ivri and this shifcha. So it's not like sleeping with a married woman. However, since she was designated to someone, it's a problem, and we make you bring an asham. The issue with the asham becomes, though, that it seems from the Torah, and this is where there's a debate about where to learn this from, but everybody agrees, it applies whether you did it on purpose, intentionally, or whether you did it accidentally. Let's say you didn't know she was a shivcha charufa. Okay, so it's a little bit different than our chatat. Our chatat only comes when it's shogeg, and we know by the chatat it says O hoda elav chatato asher chatat. There has to be knowledge that you did something wrong in order to be obligated in the korban. When it comes to this asham shivcha charufa, there's a big debate about whether, and this is what we're going to discuss here, whether yidi'ah is important or not. Does this play a factor? Let's say you did it b'shogeg, okay, but you never knew that you did it. And let's say you brought an asham, would it cover you? Okay, and you might say, why would you even bring it? But let's say you had a number of times you did it and you only found out about one of them, right? So, and then you would, so the question is, okay, so that's where Ula starts. Ula starts and says, Leman da'amar asham vadai lo baya yidia b'tchila. The words O hoda alav chatato never appear in the verse there. So even though it's talking about a shogeg case, it's also talking about a mazid case. Now in a mazid, obviously you don't need yidiah. You had yidiah when you did the act. You did it intentionally. So therefore, some people hold that yidiah is not a factor here. If yidiah is not a factor, then comes Ula and he says, Ba'al chamesh bi'ilo b'shivcha charufa eino chayav ela echat. Let's say you slept with this woman 5 times. Then you find out that you slept with her. Let's say you slept with, I don't know, let's guess it was 5 different shivchot charufa. You have a yidiah about the first. Then you have a yidiah about the second. Then you have a yidiah about the third. So if you did chamesh bi'ilo b'shivcha charufa b'shogeg, and then you find out separately about each one, you're only chayav 1. Right? Whereas before we said that yidiyot separate, remember, yidiyah is important, and therefore that determines that you're going to be obligated a separate korban, or at least according to Rabbi Yochanan. So here he says, in shivcha charufa, since yidiyah is not, if you hold, now again, notice his words. He starts off with leman da'amar, according to the one who says, means not according to everybody, but the one who says that yidiyah is not playing a factor, is not an important thing here. If you slept 5 times with the shivcha charufa, okay, you can look on the sheet. I wrote here, right? Right? You shagag or hazid, hifrish korban, okay? So if you, let's say, designate a korban, right? I actually didn't put one on the sheet like this. Okay, but anyway, it's like shagag, it's like at the top with the chatat. Shagag, nodalo, right? You did a shagag, you did, right? You slept with her, then, right? Let's say 5 times. Then you found out about the first, you found out about the second. So basically, you're only chayav 1. So matkifla Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna says that's crazy what you're saying. Why? Elameata, from if you're going to say this, and this goes back to Carolyn, what you were asking in the chat about what kind of society does this create? Baal. Okay, now according to the Hagahot Bach, you take out the next words. Baal, the next 2 words ignore. Baal v'hifrish korban. Let's say you slept with her. You designate a korban, right? You separate an animal. Va'amar, and then you say, wait, before I sacrifice my korban, hamtinu liad she'evol. Wait a minute. Let me just get one more in, and then I know my korban will cover me. So you're basically saying, right, if you say, chamesh be'ilot, you're only chayav 1, the yidiyah is not important, then it sounds like you could basically lead people to do this. Do an act, bring a korban, and then say, oh, wait, hold off, one more time, let me get it in. So Ula answers, no, obviously that wasn't what I was talking about. Amar le, ma'aseh de la'achar hafrasha ka'amarta. You're basically saying, you're talking about a case where he slept with her, he finds out he did something wrong, he separates a korban, he doesn't bring it yet, and then he does another act. That's not what I was talking about. Ma'aseh de la'achar hafrasha lo ka'amin. I wasn't talking about where he slept with her after he already designated the korban. My case was where he did both acts, or 5 acts, then starts finding out separately that he made a mistake in each one. That's what I was talking about. So you're comparing apples and oranges. That's not a fair comparison. I certainly would not condone behavior like that. Hi'ata Rav Dimi Amar. So we now have, just to review, we have the first case is Ula, who says, if you hold, remember, it starts with a big if, because that's what's going to be the next thing. If you hold the other opinion, then you might say otherwise. So if you hold that yidiyah does not play an important role in the asham, because it's shogeg and mazid, and therefore yidiyah can't be that significant, then you're going to hold that if you did a bunch of acts and then found out about them separately, you're only going to have to bring 1 asham. You have Rav Hamnuna who says, once you separate the korban, well then, and then you do a new act of be'ilah, of sleeping with her, obviously you're going to have to bring a separate korban on each time. And now, ki ata Rav Dimi amar, lemanda amar, asham vadai bai yidiyah b'tchila. Now he's talking about the other opinion, the Ula, against Ula. Not that you disagree with Ula, but he's saying if you're the one who holds that, because there's a machloket about this, Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva, if you hold that asham vadai bai yidiyah b'tchila, no, it's like any shogeg. Any shogeg, you need to have knowledge in order to be obligate you in a korban. And yidiyah is a factor. Well then, then, if you sleep with this woman 5 times, and then successively you find out, the first time it was a shogeg, then you find out about the second time, and then you find out about the third time, and then you find out about the fourth and the fifth, then you're going to be obligated separate korbanot. So Amarle Abaye says, wait a minute. How could you say this? Hare chatat debi'ina yidiyah b'tchila. You're comparing it to a chatat. Now chatat, everybody knows you need yidiyah. That's very important. And yet, not everybody agreed about that case. Okay, look back if you have the sheet in front of you. What was the second case? They were Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish debated, right? Upligi Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. He says, you're saying this as if it's obvious. But I know, and we all know, that Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan had a debate about chatat in this case. This is exactly case number 2 on the sheet, which is you made a mistake, you made another mistake, then you find out about your first, and then you find out about the second. When we talked about that in the Chelev, in the Chatat case, we said there's a machloket Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish, whether one covers everything or you have to bring separate. So why is it so obvious to you that when it comes to the Asham, it would be obvious that you have to bring 2 or 5 in this case, when there was a whole debate about it? So, Ishtik, Rav Dimi is silent. He doesn't know what to say. So now, sometimes this happens. The student asks a question, or I don't know if he wasn't exactly a student, but they were together in the Beit Midrash. Abaye asks him the question, and then Abaye comes up with the answer himself. He says, Amarle, Dilma b'ma'aseh dela'achar hafrasha ka'amarta uchid Rav Hamnuna. Maybe your case when you said that you're chayav for each time, maybe it's talking about when you did the ma'aseh, where he slept with her, after he had already designated a korban, just like Rav Hamnuna had said previously. And that's what you mean, and not the comparable case to the Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish debate, where, right, all the acts happened first, before, and only after he slowly, gradually started finding out about every act that he did that it was shogeg. But no, he did the act, he found out it was shogeg, that he made the mistake. Then he did the act again, right? Then he separated the sacrifice. Then he did the act again after. And then, like Rav Hamnuna, and Amar Le'in, Rav Dimi says, oh, in fact, you're right. And now it's kind of funny, right? Abaye suggests, maybe this is what you meant. And Rav Dimi, oh, yeah, that was what I meant. But very likely it could be that, that Rav Dimi often brings the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. So it could be he brought this. Sometimes you learn something and you don't remember it exactly, or you didn't get it exactly. And you kind of say it over and someone says, wait, but what are you talking about? And then you start thinking about, wait, oh, you're right. There's a problem with what I'm saying. And when Abaye suggested, maybe that was the suggestion, he said, oh, it must be. Maybe he was saying, maybe I misunderstood. Originally when I first said it, I didn't realize it was that case, and maybe you're right, that's what they were talking about. Or alternatively, he could have reminded him. Sometimes you just refresh your memory. Oh, right, that's what the case was. In any case, he says, yes, that's what I must be talking about. And now here comes the summary line, and then we're going to move on to a totally different topic. Ki ata Ravin. When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, he gave an easy way for people to remember the 3 parts of our sugya. Amar, hakol modim b'shivcha charufa, v'hakol modim b'shivcha charufa, u'machloket b'shivcha charufa. Okay, he says, everybody agrees in shivcha charufa, everybody agrees in shivcha charufa, and there's a machloket in shivcha charufa. That sounds like a funny thing. It's kind of a way, I guess, to pique people's interest. What do you mean everyone agrees, and what do you mean they disagree? So what is this a reference to? It's to remember the 3 things we just learned, which is, it's good chazara, it's good review. Hakol modim b'shivcha charufa de'eno chayav ela echad kede'ula. Everybody agrees that, again, you have to add in the extra words. If you hold, so it's not really everyone agrees, but everyone agrees that according to the one who says that yediyah is not a factor in the asham, we'll say that if you made the mistake, and then again made a mistake, and then again, right? And then found out, and then found out, and then found out, you would bring 1 on everything. If you hold yediyot are not important. If you hold yediyot are important, I'm now going to jump to the last case. Okay, if you hold yediyot are important, then it's going to be parallel to the chatat case, which is, it's going to be a machloket Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish. And then it's going to depend. If you're Rabbi Yochanan, you're going to say Yediot Mechalkot, and you're going to have to bring two separate ones. And Rish Lakish says, no, one covers everything. So that's the last Hakol, the Machloket. And the middle one, okay, we'll just read inside now. So Hakol Modim B'Shivcha Charufa De'enu Chayav El Echad Kede'ula. That's the first. Hakol Modim B'Shivcha Charufa, the second one, De'chayav Kol Echad Echad Ki Rav Hamnuna. That if you did the act, separated your korban, and then again slept with a woman, a Shivcha Charufa, and then separated korban, and then again, each time you're going to have to bring a separate sacrifice because you already separated your korban before you did the next act. And Hakol Modim, and this is already what I said, I'm sorry, Machloket B'Shivcha Charufa, Laman Damar, Asham Vadai Bai Yediah B'Tchila, Machloket Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. But if you hold that Yediot do separate, then it's going to be exactly like the Chatat, and Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish are going to debate whether you have to bring two korbanot Asham or not. Okay. Now we're going to get to a topic called mitasek. We're going to see there's a big famous machloket Rashi Tosfot about what exactly mitasek is, and they each have a debate about how exactly to understand the case in the Gemara, which is going to lead them to mitasek. Mitasek means, I'll try to explain it very broadly without getting into Rashi Tosfot, but that you intended to do one act and a different act happened. Okay? So now again, when it comes to Shabbat, what do we always say? Melechet machshevet asra toha. There has to be intent. You wanted this act to happen, and you wanted it to be the way you wanted it. So the question between Rashi and Tosfot is, how different does it have to be for it to be called mitasek? And mitasek in Shabbat is going to be patur. It's similar. It's always confusing, right? We always have to define what's the difference between davar she'eino mitkaven, between mitasek and malacha she'eino tzricha legufa. Okay, so now we're defining mitasek, which is similar to them but somewhat different. But they all come from the same concept, that melechet machshevet, and only when it's really what you intended, are you going to be obligated. So Itmar, intro to a machloket amoraim. This one's a little bit different because the first part is going to first say what everybody agrees about, then it's going to talk about the debate. Nitkaven lahagbiya et hatalush v'chatach et hamechubar patur. Everybody agrees that this case is going to be exempt. You intended to pick up something that was detached from the ground, okay? I have a bobby pin here on the ground. Okay, you can't really see it, but I pick up a bobby pin. And I have a pen, which you can see better, but a pen is muktzah, but let's just assume, okay? I see the pen on the ground. I want to pick it up. I go to pick it up, but instead of picking it up, it's on the ground right next to my vegetables. By accident, I lift a vegetable and detach it from the ground. Now that's malacha of kotzer, okay? You're not allowed to do that. But if I meant, now here, I meant to pick up the talush, and instead of picking something up, I cut something, right? Because I detached it from the ground. Those are two totally different acts and two different objects. Here I was picking up a pen, and instead of picking up the pen, I ended up picking up something, a cucumber, let's say. Okay, so in that case, everybody agrees that you're a patur. But what if I wanted to cut something that was detached on the ground? I saw an onion on the ground that was detached. I wanted to cut it. Now, when I went to cut the onion while it was on the ground, I don't know exactly why I was cutting it while it was on the ground, but I was cutting it on the ground. Let's say it was attached to the root. Let's say it pulled out with the root and I wanted to cut the root off. So I go to cut the root off and I accidentally, okay, now this is a bit of a debate, what exactly happens here, but I cut a different onion, according to Rashi, that was attached to the ground. So in that case, Rava Amar Patur, Abai Amar Chayav. So we'll first explain according to Rashi. Rava Amar Patur, Deha Lo Nitkaven L'Chaticha D'Isura. You weren't intending to cut anything that was forbidden to cut. You were planning to cut an onion that was disconnected from the ground. That's totally fine. And therefore, when you ended up doing a malacha, that wasn't the malacha you were intending to do. You weren't intending to do a malacha at all. You were intending to cut something which you were allowed to cut. Rava Amar, Rava Amar Patur, because Lo Nitkaven. Abai Amar Chayav. Abai says you're obligated. Why? Because you were intending to cut. Your goal was to cut. Okay, this is different from davar she'eino mitkaven. Davar she'eino mitkaven is you were doing one act and a different act happened in the process, right? You were dragging a chair and you dug a ditch, okay? But here, you were intending to cut and you actually cut, okay? Now, it's true that you were intending to cut something that you were allowed to cut and you ended up cutting something that you weren't allowed to cut. But you had intent to cut, and therefore your intent was to cut, and you actually cut, so you're going to be obligated. Okay, that's what Abaye says, according to Rashi. Tosfot says this is a bit of a problem, because there's a different sugya which says that if you intended to pick particular fig, and instead you picked a different fig, you're not obligated. Now that you intended a forbidden act and you did a forbidden act and you're still not obligated. So how could that fit in with this sugya here? That seems to contradict what we're saying, because here there's no machloket. And so basically, and here it's the same object. So basically, so again, according to Rashi, we're talking about two different objects. Tosfot says it can't be because of that other sugya. And there it's clear that you're going to be, that you're patur, if it's, right, even though you intended to actually do something forbidden, okay, because you wanted a different fig, it's not malacha machshevet, what you wanted didn't happen. You wanted that fig, you ended up with a different fig, that's a real, right, that's a big chidush. Again, all these things are going to be forbidden midrabanan likely, but, or many of these cases. But anyway, he says, it's a difference, so he says, if you intended to cut something that was mechubar, and you cut something that was mechubar, you cut a different object that was attached to the ground, then you're for sure exempt. The machloket here is you intended to cut something that was attached to the ground, but you thought that it was detached. Okay, so when you went to, what he's going to basically differ from Rashi is, there was one onion, not two onions. Okay, it wasn't that one onion was attached to the ground and one onion was detached, or two figs. Two figs, for sure, if they're two different objects, Tosfot says for sure you're exempt, because you wanted this one, you ended up with a different one. Tosfot says you saw this onion on the ground and you thought it wasn't attached to the ground. So you went to cut it. When you cut it, all of a sudden it turned out it was attached to the ground. And you only realized after you cut it that it was actually attached. So then we're going to have a machloket between Rav and Abaye about whether you're obligated. And then let's read the Gemara according to him. So Rava Amar Patur, lo nitkaven l'chaticha d'isura. You didn't intend to do anything asur. It's true you intended to cut the onion, and the onion was attached to the ground, but you thought, again, it all doesn't matter what really was true. It matters what you thought. You thought the onion was detached. You certainly had no intent to do a malacha. You just wanted to cut that onion. Turns out you were wrong. You were mistaken about it, but that you're actually exempt. And according to Abaye, you're chayav dehamit kaven l'chaticha ba'alma. You wanted to cut, and the onion was attached to the ground. Okay, you didn't know, but you actually intended. What Abaye is going to basically say is, in the end, your intent was fulfilled. You wanted that onion, you got that onion. Now, it's true it was attached to the ground. You didn't know that, but that doesn't matter. Your act was a creative act. You wanted that onion, you got that onion, you cut it, you intended to cut, as opposed to if you intended just to pick it up, and then it turned out it was attached and you cut it. That would be different. Then everyone would agree you're patur, but you intended to cut, you cut, but you accidentally cut something that was attached to the ground. That's going to be chayav. Okay. For the rest of the daf, we're going to deal with Rava. Okay, Rava says, and the source that Rava brings to prove his approach. So remember, Rava said you're patur because you didn't intend for cutting, for a forbidden cutting, and that's why it's okay. So Amar Rava mina amina. Where do I get it from? Ditanya, he says, I get it from the following Breita. And we're going to have a lot of issues figuring out what exactly this Breita is talking about. Chomer Shabbat mishar mitzvot. The Chomer shar mitzvot mishabbat. Shabbat has something that's more machmir about it and something that's less machmir about it. Chomer Shabbat mishar mitzvot. Shabbat asa shtayim behelem echad chayav al kol echat ve'echat. Ma she'en came b'shar mitzvot. Shabbat is more difficult, and now we're going to see the connection, why they brought up the sugya now, because this Breita is going to compare the two sugyot we just learned. Shabbat is more chamor about the whole issue that you have to bring multiple korbanot chatat on, right? Let's say, okay, we're not yet sure what this is talking about, but let's say we talked about before shigigat malachot. You forgot it was asur to cut. You forgot it was asur to grind, right? And you did both those. You're going to have to bring a separate korban on each one. Whereas shar mitzvot, that's not the case. Now we're going to have to find a comparable case in shar mitzvot to say, where would you have something like that in shar mitzvot? So hold off. We don't really know what this means yet. But shar mitzvot, you'd only be obligated one in a comparable case. The chomer shar mitzvot mishabbat. Now other mitzvot are different from Shabbat in the sense, shar mitzvot shagag b'lo mitkaven chayav. Ma she'en came b'Shabbat. In other mitzvot, if you did something without intent, accidentally, with no intent, you'd be chayav. But ma she'en came b'Shabbat. But that's what we just learned in Shabbat. In this case, what we say, you're going to be patur, right? If you didn't have intent, that's what we said. Shabbat is unique in that you need malachet machshevet. Without malachet machshevet, it's not going to be asur, whereas in other areas, it is. Now, again, we're going to have to figure out what's the comparable case, what are other areas. Amar Mar. So now they want to understand this Braita better. But what do you see from here? This was proving Rabba's position, because what does Rabba say? You're patur in the case where you intended to cut, but you didn't intend to cut this onion, or you didn't intend to cut an attached onion, depending on whether you're Rashi or Tosfot. And he basically says that's shagag below mitkaven, and you're going to be patur. Okay? And that's his proof. But now the question is, what are the shar mitzvot in the other cases, right? The comparison. So let's start with the first part. Amar Mar, chomer Shabbat mishar mitzvot, shashabat asa shtayim behelem achat, chayav kol achat be'achat, ma she'en kein b'shar mitzvot. That's just the quote from the Braita. Hey chidami, what's the case? Ilema da'avid ktsira utchina. Okay, that's what I just said. Let's say you cut something and then you ground it. Okay, you be chayav too, correct? Well, de kavate de gabe shar mitzvot. What's the comparison to other mitzvot? Let's first say, for example, achal chela v'dam. Let's say you ate the forbidden fats and you ate blood. Now, that can't possibly be, right? And let's try to compare that to somewhere else. Now, it's hard to find a comparison because Shabbat is the same topic. Chela v'dam are two different things. But shar mitzvot, any other mitzvah, there's only one thing you can do wrong generally. So how could we have a case like this? So basically, they say if you're going to say achal chela v'dam, both of them, you have to bring a separate chatat on your chelev, a separate chatat on your dam, separate chatat on ktsira, separate chatat on tchina. So you can't say this is chamor from Shabbat and shar mitzvot, because so it can't be punching chelev and dam. Shar mitzvot is not chelev and dam. That wouldn't make sense. What could be a shar mitzvah that you'd only be obligated once? Okay, so what is it? Let's try this one. Maybe it's like we saw before. If you eat chelev, and then you eat chelev, and then you find out that both times you ate chelev, you'd only be chayav one, right? Depending on the scenario, and depending on Rabbi Yochanan and what it is. But in certain cases, it's clear you're only chayav one. Well, try to compare that to Shabbat. To kavatei debe Shabbat, now we're going to reverse the comparison. What would it be in Shabbat? Chelev and chelev. You would have to say, to avad ktsira u ktsira. Now, if you did ktsira, and then you did ktsira, and then you found out that ktsira was forbidden, what would we say? You're only chayav one. We learned that already. You're only chayav one for each malacha. So, both in the chelev case you be chayav one, and in the ktsira case you be chayav one. So basically, can't be that case. So we're still stuck trying to figure out, where do we have a case in Shabbat that would be comparable to a case of shar mitzvot, where in Shabbat you'd be chayav two, and in shar mitzvot you'd only be chayav one. So now they're going to say, okay, back to with our first option. La'olam de'avad ktsira utchina. It was the case that you did two different malachot, and you chayav a separate chatat for each one. Umay ma she'en came b'shar mitzvot. What's that case that not like a shar mitzvot? Avodah zara. They found some other mitzvah where there's branches of it, different things that one can do within avodah zara. And they said, and this must hold kid Rabbi Ami, like Rabbi Ami's approach. Ta'amar Rabbi Ami, zibech, v'kiter, v'nisech, v'halama achat, eino chayav ela achat. Let's say you worshipped avodah zara by accident. You didn't realize. Okay, we're going to have to debate it. We're going to have to figure out what it means you didn't realize. But let's say you worshipped avodah zara, you didn't realize. Okay, actually here we're not going to debate it. Okay, let's say you didn't know it was avodah zara to do this. Let's say you didn't know it was usher to do the following things for a pesel. I don't know why you wouldn't know this, but let's say. So you sacrificed for avodah zara. You did a ktoret, you burned incense, and you poured libations for the avodah zara, and then you find out that everything you were doing was for avodah zara, you're only chayav one korban chatat. Okay. So that's what they say. Take Shabbat. We're in the first part of the Braita. The first part of the Braita said Shabbat is more chamor, that if you did two acts of Shabbat, you'd have to bring a separate one for each one, two different malachot. But if you did, and we can really compare there, two different melachot, let's say, right? Two different acts of worship, or three or four, it doesn't matter, for avodah zara, accidentally, you would only bring one. That's Rabbi Ami's position, and that must be what the Braita means. But what's the problem? If that's what the Braita means, that shar mitzvot in the Braita is avodah zara, in the first part, then we would have to assume, now this is a question, maybe you don't have to assume this, but we'll get to that tomorrow. But right now, we're going to assume if shar mitzvot imagine, substitute in the words, instead of shar mitzvot, it really means avodah zara, then shar mitzvot in the second part of that Braita is also going to be avodah zara. So now let's read the second part of that Braita. So ema seifa, look at the last part of the Braita. It says, chomer b'shar mitzvot. Now, in shar mitzvot, it's more chamor than Shabbat. שבשאר מצוות שגג ולא מתכוון חייב, מה שאין כן בשבת. In Shar Mitzvot, which is now going to be Avodah Zarah, if you accidentally did it without kavanah, you're chayav. But that's not true when it comes to Shabbat. So now, Hai Shagag B'lo Mitkaven Avodah Zarah Hechidami. What would be a case of Shagag B'lo Mitkaven in Avodah Zarah that you'd be chayav? And now they're going to go through 3 options, and they're going to eventually reject all options and be left with, this can't possibly be talking about Avodah Zarah. Okay, so let's try our 3 options. Hechidami. Ilema kesavur beit knessetu v'ishtachavela harei libo l'shamayim. If you went to this place and you thought it was a synagogue for God, and you bowed down there, okay? It says something weird. It says yishtachavela. You bow down as if to the Beit HaKnesset. Some people have a version that just says v'ishtachava. You bowed in the shul, okay? But you bowed in prayer. Well, that would be shagag v'lo mitkaven, right? You didn't realize it was a place of idol worship. I don't know how you confuse the two, but let's say. Harei libo l'shamayim. Well, you had the right intent. So you wouldn't be obligated, because that's not Avodah Zarah has to be that you were intending to worship idols. There is no, again, Avodah Zarah also has to do with kavanah. If you were bowing down to God and it happened there was a pesel and you didn't mean to, well, you're not obligated to bring a korban for that. The ela dechaze andarta. Okay, so let's say it wasn't that you were bowing down to God, but you saw an andarta. Now, an andarta in Hebrew is some sort of, trying to think of the word, but some sort of statue, but here, or a place of remembrance, right, where they put up something to remember an event. But Rashi says it's Surat HaMelech. It's one of those statues that you see, thank you, a monument. It's a monument that's for a particular king, right? You see this all over the world. They have a big statue of a king or someone of importance, a person, and you bow down to it. But you didn't bow down as if it was a god. You just bow down out of respect. So maybe that's the case. So you bow down to it. Well, hechidami, what's the case there? Again, it depends on your intent. If you bow down because you believe this was a god, well, that's mezitu. That wouldn't be shagag b'lo mitkaven. That was real intent. If you weren't taking it upon yourself as God and you were just bowing out of respect to the king, well, lav klumhu. That's not Avodah Zarah. So again, that wouldn't be shagag b'lo mitkaven. So we're still stuck with trying to figure out what would be the case. So again, we tried to say you thought it was a Beit Knesset, right? You're thinking it was a Beit Knesset. That can't be, because again, it all depends on your intent. You went to the statue where it wasn't that you were actually praying to God, you were bowing, but still, if you weren't intending to worship it, it wouldn't be. Well, they come up with an in-between case. Ela me'ahava u'miyiv'ah. Let's say you had a friend who did worship this as their idol. And he said, come along with me and bow down. And either you love this person and because of that you did it, or you feared this person and out of fear you did it. And you bow down to the idol, to the statue, as if it was an idol. But you in your mind had no intent of worshiping idols. You were just doing it for your friend's sake. So maybe that's the case. And that's considered shagag b'lo mitkaven. You thought it was okay to do this, and it's really not, because you really didn't. It was kind of avodah zarah worship. Well, because I said it was kind of avodah zarah worship, we're going to see there's actually a machloket Abaye and Rava about this particular case. So Hani chala Abaye damar chayav. Abaye thinks you're actually obligated in that case, and then that would be the case that would match this braita very well. But according to Rava, and if you remember, this is Rava who brought this braita. According to Rava, to Amar Patur, Rava thinks you'd actually be exempt in that case. If you bow down only because your friend, and because either he was your friend or you were fearful of him, and that's why you bowed down, but in your heart you were never worshiping idols, you're actually not obligated. So, ma'ika l'meimar, so we still have no case. So that was option number 2. Option number 2, right? Option number 1 was Beit Knesset. You thought it was a Beit Knesset, and it was really a house of idols. Second one was you thought it was a statue and you thought it was okay to bow down to it because you were doing it just because of your friend and you really didn't mean it. Well, that's also, you're going to be patur according to Rava. So that can't be. Ela be'omer mutar. You had no idea it was forbidden to worship idols. Okay? Maybe that's the case. And then you're going to be chayav. Masha ein kain b'Shabbat patur legamre. Okay? So on Shabbat, you're patur if you thought it was mutar. So now they say, now that also can't be. Why? Okay, here we get again some chazara. We learned previously, if you remember, that Rava asked Rav Nachman the following question. If you were shogeg, legabe Shabbat, and you were shogeg legabe melachot, right? You didn't know it was Shabbat, you didn't know about Shabbat, and you didn't know about melachot. That's really omer mutar, right? That's the case of omer mutar. You thought it was okay because you didn't know it was Shabbat, and you didn't know melachot were asurot, so you thought it was okay, and you went ahead and did it. What did we have a debate about there? Do you remember? If you're shogeg b'melachot, you have to bring a korban chatat on each melacha you did. If you're shogeg legabe Shabbat, you only have to bring one. So Rava asked Rav Nachman, what if you're shogeg about both? And you had no idea. That's basically omer mutal. So what would we say? Rava's question to Rav Nachman was, do you have to bring one or do you have to bring two? But he never thought you're totally exempt. He just had a debate. Is it considered shigigat Shabbat or is it considered shigigat melachot? Because you did a number of melachot also. So what do you see? The case of omer mutal, maybe by avodah zarah, we'd say you're chayav, but also by Shabbat, you're chayav. So again, we're trying to figure out what does this line mean? Shagad b'lo mitkaven chayav, ma she'en ken b'Shabbat. But this case, if you say omer mutal, it's clear, certainly Rava felt that way, and it seems clear otherwise, that if you're shagag about Shabbat, you thought it was mutar because you didn't think it was Shabbat today, you're going to be chayav. And likewise, by avodah zarah, you're going to be chayav, so that can't be the case. So now we're stuck, because again, I'll remind you where we started. In order to understand the first line, we had to fill in that shar mitzvot meant avodah zarah. But if shar mitzvot means avodah zarah in the beginning, we're going to assume that shar mitzvot means avodah zarah in the end of that bright, in the second case. And we can't find a case where you'd be chayav for avodah zarah and patur from Shabbat. All the cases seem to be the same for both. Either you're going to be obligated or you're not going to be obligated, but it's going to be the same Shabbat and avodah zarah. In the end, I won't leave you in such suspense, but the Gemara is going to say, El alav reisha b'avodah zarah v'seifa b'shar mitzvot. And then we'll explain what the case is about shar mitzvot, and we're basically going to say, in the first case, we couldn't come up with a scenario that compared to Shabbat in other mitzvot, so we had to say avodah zarah. In the second part of the Braita, we can't figure out avodah zarah, so we're going to go back, revert back to shar mitzvot, and shar mitzvot in one case is going to be avodah zarah, in the other case it's going to be other things like chelev and dam. Okay, and we'll get back to that tomorrow, and we'll understand how they answer it ultimately.